After that, Mr. Luke immediately said there was no need to wait and see. The stone has been cut. The stone cutter said it was just common pox. Those words surprised everyone. Is everyone so surprised? Impossible. How could there be Luke? Does feng shui theory really work? If the remaining stone turns green, it is no longer lucky. But someone immediately argued that perhaps he was lucky. He panicked and thought that it was obvious that the two stones were thrown away, but how could it be green? The stone cutter began to continue cutting the second stone. He triumphantly called for it to be cut, while he convinced himself that he would not have it. Then the cutter said he had cut all 6 sides and couldn't see the green color. Hearing that, he was happy. It seemed that the final winner was still him. But with a cunning face he asked if we should add more bets, surprising him. He said that at least at the present time, his side is good and holds more and his side has more to win. If you want to play more, maybe a good car will become a supercar. Hearing that, he immediately agreed and said that if he was in a hurry to give money, then of course he would play to the end. Seeing that the two people were having fun, Mr. Luke also wanted to join, so he offered a price of 1,000. When Mr. Luke heard that, he proudly asked him to join the party. Then he turned to tell him that if he won, he would give him a sports car, of course not a 100,000 Vietnamese dongs car. He happily thanked Mr. Luke. His expression changed when he heard the two people talking. Mr. Chow immediately asked Mr. Luke this time, "Are you sure you won my 5 million Vietnamese dongs?" Hearing that, Mr. Luke often said 5,000 was his. He said more accurately, 5,000 of you guys. Mr. Hearing that, he laughed quite a bit and pointed out that pulling the strings didn't sound too bad. Looking at him, he said he was much smarter than his worthless nephew. Mr. Luke immediately stood in front of him and warned Mr. Ta to take back his laughable plan. Then Mr. Luke continued to say that he had not offended Mr. Ta at all. "Don't you dare touch him." He immediately said he would just say hello. "Look at Mr." The two of them shouted in unison to cut it off. While Mr. Luke's way of asking you quietly was not wrong, he immediately told me to go and see that I still had 100,000 left. Mr. Ta told Boss Tran to rest assured that he had cut to the point where he couldn't cut anymore and this was the last cut. Mr. Tran, standing next to him, said that the probability of being green was less than 1 part. After that, Mr. Tran and his partner sweated and asked if it was really green. The stone cutter immediately said it was red. He immediately wondered why red appeared. Some people said it was possible to cut a blood bandit. This surprised Mr. Luke. People started bidding to buy the stone. Some offered 2 million, some offered 500,000, some offered 600,000, then 1 million. He thought to himself that this time he deeply felt that cutting a good stone would attract so much attention. Then he immediately thought of up to 1,000. Should I sell it or wait until the system is upgraded to evaluate its value? Then the stone cutter said that it was not the bloodtail but the scarlet red band of ice. Hearing that, the crowd immediately discussed the appearance of ice in the Thien Nguyen area. They immediately rushed to buy raw stones. Mr. Luke took the check and said, "I'll take it here." Chow Hao Ban suddenly said ice. Then he turned to ask his father if that was an ice species. He asked why he didn't have any feelings. His father cried and said, "These past few days, have you noticed that there are few ice seeds left?" After that, he thought that his family's original stone had ice in it, but he thought it was trash and was sold for free. People around were talking. Some said that the experts who assessed them didn't say that these 2 stones were trash, so why did they have jade? Others say 1 stone is lucky, 2 stones are still lucky. He cut out 2 stones, both of which contained jade, so could it be a blind cat and a dead mouse? What if the other person continues talking normally, boasting about how good they are now? After that, the man who was against him yelled at the appraiser because they kept saying that he was unlucky and we lost 5 million, so our performance was gone. The appraiser immediately said that the fish is a problem for you guys. He was angry and asked you to come here to make money, not to lose money. Suddenly a blonde man came out and said, "Losing money is not losing people. In a crowded place like this, there should be less arguing. Luke Kwok Han is not a good thing anymore than so many people witnessed. If you don't regain some dignity, I'm afraid that within 2 days they will be misrepresented by people in this industry as distorted. Mr. Tran and Mr. Ta sweat dropped at those words. Mr. Tran turned and said that at first he intended to lure Mr. Luke into the trap because he thought Mr. Luke did not know how to pour jelly. But today Mr. Luke brought him with him. How to play again. Mr. Ta immediately said that choosing the right time to do this matter could not be dismissed so easily. On the other side, Mr. Luke gave him 501,000. He happily thanked Mr. Luke. I didn't expect that someone with a lot of money would bring a fat pig to sacrifice and even take the initiative to wash it and bring it to the door, begging us to kill it. He opened the system and felt strange that 1,500,000 expenses had been transferred to his card. The balance is 2,400,000, but the progress of the main mission still stops at 800,000. He wondered why the system was still leveling up. Suddenly Mr. Luke called him back. He invited me to lunch with his friends. He asked him if he wanted to buy hazelnuts, but he decided to keep this hazelnut for now with no plans to sell it. Hearing that, Mr. Luke said they just wanted to ask for advice on the technique of using feng shui to identify stones, which is now very hot and will soon be circulating in the world. He asked him if he had saved this block of red hazelnuts for the little girl to love. But he just said that he hasn't thought carefully about how to handle it, mainly because he's not short of money right now. Mr. Luke agreed that because he was a student, he didn't spend much money and keeping money was a good habit. Then he patted him on the shoulder and said if anyone wanted to ask for advice, talk to them. Those who come here all have assets of over 100 million. Nowadays, if you want to trade, you have to communicate widely. He regretted that if he had understood these things when he was young, he would not have been so foolish as to hold grudges with so many people. He just laughed and talked nonsense about his own experiences. Anyone who came to ask him was satisfied. They said that after listening to him, they learned many lessons. He just arbitrarily said nonsense that many people believed. Then he saw the system notification that the upgrade was successful. He opened it to see what was new. The system has additional reputation and status activation. That means it will help improve the effectiveness of the host's aura. Buying and selling in the store will receive a discount. You can also increase your attributes along with leveling up your position, bringing even greater effectiveness. If you reach a certain level, you will receive even more benefits. Just click to see your current level and it turns out it's just a common level. Then he thought that these unlocked features seemed to be related to the position. Perhaps as a monk, these powers will be opened. Looking at the system, he saw that upgrading positions requires using reputation to exchange for position experience cards. But for now, fame can only be obtained through accepting and completing fame quests. He opened the fame chapter to see what it sold. Surprisingly, there are only 3 items. He saw the egg and thought it looked like a golden egg, a lucky draw egg with a certain chance of receiving high-class items. If you are lucky, the contents inside this fruit must be worth the money. I plan to buy it but I don't know how to buy it. Then he noticed that if he lost an appraisal letter, he could raise his appraisal level to at least be able to appraise demon-type items. Is this the lowest level of appraisal? Then this appraisal letter must definitely be obtained. The system displays a notification that there are 10 hours left until the next reload. Then he realized that the things sold on the famous brand all had a set time and when the time expired, the items would automatically be changed. At first, he thought the price of an egg was 19 fame cards, but there were less than 10 hours left, so he had to complete the fame mission to accumulate 19 cards. He immediately looked at the fame mission first and saw that the mission board appeared and had completed 3 trend-leading missions. I admire you very much and someone likes you. Then it showed up the details of the mission to lead the trend and he thought to himself how could he do these things himself. But because everyone around him looked at him admiringly, he realized that the completely new experience of independent action was based on feng shui testing. As for the mission I really admire you. You will be rewarded with 3 more fame cards. He thought that when he was in school, he continuously broke records and cost the teacher a lot of money. This time, every behavior at an exhibition with 50 people who liked him was too normal. And the task of having someone like you is completed. I remember this was the first mission at school. Social network reputation plus 100, reputation card plus 1. After reviewing, he concluded that his friend already had 9 cards and needed to earn 10 more. There are 3 daily missions given that are not very difficult. The first one is Long Live Friends. The mission required the sympathy of 100 people. In front of him, he had 63 people and only 37 people left. He thought the Jade exhibition gave him the opportunity to maximize his potential. Luckily, Mr. Luke reminded me, so I received the sympathy of so many people. He immediately decided to take the risk. Behind him, 2 people came to greet him. The man who stepped forward introduced himself as An because he heard that his appraisal method was very special and wanted to ask for advice. After looking at his business cards, he found that there was no useful information, no company title or address. Then he shyly told Mr. An that he didn't have a business card because of that. Mr. An also happily said that it was okay that this meeting was because he wanted to get to know him. Mr. An asked him to address me as uncle. You don't pay attention. He immediately said he didn't care, so he would call him Mr. An. He happily held out the red hazelnut for her to see. It is valued at around 564,203 yuan. He kept thinking about it and forgot to predict its value. Next time, he must appraise the value of that wooden box. Xiao Hu asked him to look at his stone. He agreed and held it thoughtfully. He looked at the stone and said this stone's color looked like it was calcified. The inside is definitely very dry with no signs of nutrients being absorbed from the outside. This type of stone appears in the wrong era and wrong place. Mr. An immediately told Xiao Hu to listen to him. Even people outside the industry like you can understand. When people say something they don't like, it's not like those great masters who don't have much skill but are unpleasant and can say 2 to 3 sentences and then start showing off. Hearing that, Xiao Hu said so and went back to study feng shui generals. Some people say that this feng shui master is much more trustworthy than those stone inspection experts. Others immediately continued to say that if you want to learn this, you can't find a feng shui master to help you see the stone. The other person immediately said that inviting a feng shui master was much cheaper and the amount of money could invite 5 to 6 people. Immediately during the conversation, he immediately thought this was a sign of the outbreak of the feng shui world of General Su Trang. He said goodbye to Mr. An and Xiao Hu and promised to talk another time. The 2 of them happily said goodbye to him. The 2 people's faces then looked a bit cunning. Xiao Hu asked if they were similar. Mr. An immediately said it was like being cast from a mold. If his last name was Duong, if he didn't speak Nam Ho, he would have assumed he was from Kin Du. Xiao Hu asked Mr. An if he was curious about his background. At the dining table, many people surrounded him, asking him to help them look at the stones. He thought there were 9 more people who had sympathy for him who had reached 72. They had to try harder. He and the people sitting at the table began to drink and have fun. At another banquet table, Mr. Tran angrily shouted that Mr. Luke had taken over all his prestige and had to think of a way to regain his face. Master Lu immediately spoke up, but he was just a spoiled brat who only knew a little. In the afternoon, the 100,000 and 100,000 zones will open. If appraisals really let feng shui and physiognomy prevail, appraisers must leave this city. Mr. Tran Lin said that today they will let it go as long as they can turn the situation around. Then when everything is over, everyone will receive a big envelope. Then the blonde man said that everyone must regain their own dignity. As long as they are sincere, any problem can be solved. On the other side, Mr. Luke and I were talking. Mr. Luke Bao that day secretary too came to my school probably because of that. He wondered what that was all about. Mr. Luke immediately said that related to the government's project, a street near Tam Chung Nam Ho area will be opened, turning that area into a large commercial center with many amenities. The secretary came to Tam Chung probably to discuss land matters. In the immediate future, the address of the new school has also been verified. Mr. Luke is in charge of building a good school. He then reminded him not to underestimate this project. If confirmed, Nam Ho's economy will rise to a new level. It is said that the above wants Nin Tai Than of the province to participate and invest in construction. He secretly thought to Nin Tai Than. Mr. Luke said this afternoon the Anfa area is open. The 100,000 zone and the 10,000 zone are also open. Today I finally felt the charm of jelly beans. This cannot be overlooked. It can easily make people addicted. He reminded him not to immerse himself too deeply in jelly. Even though he has bravery, this is still a bet where one chance of winning is 9 times losing. Hearing him say that, he secretly thought that from beginning to end, it seemed like he was the one enjoying the feeling of having 5,000. This raw jade stone exhibition was also the one he pulled him into. Then he was surprised by his reminder. He thought that just now he didn't tell him not to wallow in, but saying that didn't mean he wanted him to show up. In the afternoon when he and Mr. Luke walked in, attracting everyone's attention, Chow Hao Ban saw that and immediately called his father that he was here. His father secretly thought that now he had jumped ship to Trong Duong Group and was the deputy general manager of the newly established gemstone company. Although he has high authority and position, it is difficult for others to obey him. In the 100,000 area he is observing a stone. He predicts that it will expand greatly. Mr. On asked him what he meant. He pointed to the stone and said, looking at the veins of this primeval stone moving up and down. Either big or small. There are places where it suddenly forms a circle. Furthermore, the left and right sides both have texture as the background. The distance between the ridges is sometimes narrow, sometimes wide. Then he concluded that this was a stone worth betting on. Although there will be jade, it is difficult to say what quality it will have after cutting. One person heard that and immediately said, if you said so, at least there is no hollowness inside this stone, then let's put the pull. But the person who had just invited him to bet had bright eyes and said thank you for cutting jade for the first time. Although not worth the money, for him it was a memorable memory. Everyone around him admired his bravery. He secretly thought that it was great to have 4 more people who had feelings for him. Then an employee came to tell Mr. Luke that General Hong wanted to invite him to the 1 million area and said he had a business deal to discuss with him. Mr. Luke immediately turned to ask him to go to the 1 million area. Everyone is happy that he has reached the 1 million zone, so he will be able to see huge bets. Seeing that, Chu Hao Bin asked his father if we were going there too. His father only proudly said that this time, Lee had a condition of 3 million, regardless of whether he was buying primeval stones or auctioning jade. We are all eligible to participate. Then he continued, unlike before when he was in Lam T, everything he bought had to be appraised. There is no right to self-determination. As the saying goes, big trees have a lot of nutrients. Then he turned around and told him to go inside. Afterwards, he and his father went inside and said he was not a stupid person who knew how to distinguish situations. His father told him to be a little more humble later because not everyone can step into the 100,000 area. At least someone better than them. Mr. Tran asked Mr. Ta if Luke Kwok Huan and you had entered the 100,000 area. Then Mr. Tran asked if we should come in too. But Mr. Ta was a bit hesitant because they did not have enough money. Then they met Master Kong. Mr. Ta warmly invited Master Kong to sit. Then Mr. Tran pretended to cry and said it was Luke Kwok Huan of Nam Ho. After that, he cried and admired Mr. Luke, who considered himself the master of this place. Act arrogantly and forcefully. He poured jelly with him. 1 is 5,000. Witnessing this scene, everyone looked at each other in bewilderment and wondered how shameless it was to dare to change white for black. Hearing his words, Master immediately said that Mr. Luke seemed to have a social status. Hearing that, Boss Ta immediately got excited and asked Master Kong not to. The two of them secretly thought that if things got to that point, they would definitely lose face and also offend Master Kong. Seeing that, Master Confucius asked them if they were going to suck on soapberries to make sweets, but what were they afraid of? Mr. Luke is just a thug. Why are you afraid of him? Boss Ta laughed and said that Master Kong lost anyway and he wanted to bet one more time to win against Mr. Luke. He said the proverb says, losing money is not losing people. Wherever you fall, stand up. Hearing this, Master Confucius was angry. He asked Mr. Then he said that if Mr. Luke dared to play with him, he would definitely make Mr. Luke drag himself home. But Mr. Ta immediately said that next to Mr. Luke there was a young genius who knew how to read feng shui and physiognomy. Having guessed that the stones were jade, even if he invited these experts to come, he would not be able to beat that young man. Hearing this, Master Confucius became even more angry. He said that feng shui and physiognomy were superstitious in an era and some people still believed it. Everyone they sowed had Master Confucius in battle. We will definitely win, let's go to the 1 million area. In the 1 million area, Mr. Luke is discussing with General Hong. He said that if he wanted to participate in the renovation of the shopping city, this time in Namho City, he would agree to help Hong Tong collect this thread. Mr. Luke said that tomorrow we would meet with the city commissioners, and General Hong immediately responded. When seeing Boss Ta's group of people, someone said they were a group of spirits that could not be dissolved. Mr. Tran pointed at him and told Master Kong it was that guy. His face turned pale and he spoke so softly that it was still audible. But Master Confucius said that not being able to hear does not mean having poor eyesight. I think it turns out he knows how to read lips. Then he looked at him and asked if he was the guy who liked to spread superstition. Then he looked at Mr. Luke and asked if he was a thug who liked to bully others. He said there were 2 carp fish in a litter, one big and one small. Even if you didn't know how to look at it, you would know it wasn't anything good. He didn't know to what extent they had described how this old man was so confrontational. Mr. Luke then continued to say, let it go, if your mouth grows on someone else's face, if you can't cover it, then let them say it. He despised the kind of petty people who were considered both despicable and ungrateful. Then he continued to say that the old fox must not distinguish between black and white and believe what people say. Hearing him say that, Master Confucius became angry and asked if his parents didn't teach him to respect the elderly. Mr. Kong said, don't think that the 2 of you are mumbling and you don't know anything. Then he turned to ask Mr. Master Kong Lin, then introduced himself as Kong Bon Chan from Hai Duong City. He has studied geology and stratigraphy for nearly 50 years and is also a friend of Boss Ta. Mr. Kong asked, is it true that he lost nearly 6 million to you guys? Mr. Luke said that is true. Mr. Kong then said that if he had come to the 100,000 area without cutting a few rocks, the thug like he meant Mr. Luke would have felt dissatisfied. Mr. Luke thought to himself that he was called a thug. Let Mr. Luke know what it means to respect the elderly and what it means to be humble. He thought to himself, elder. Then he just talked nonsense. He asked Mr. Kong what the rules were and he told him. When you win, say you're relying on your old age. Hearing that, Mr. Kong was angry. He said he was very curious about how people in his family normally taught him, even without the slightest bit of politeness. Hearing him say that, he got angry and asked if the old dog had finished talking. Mr. Kong was surprised by his words. Then tell him that the odds of each person choosing 3 valuable stones after cutting will determine the winner or loser. He immediately agreed with Mr. Kong's way of playing. But then he said this was a fair match. If based on the total value to decide victory or defeat, there must be a judge, right? Suddenly, someone was appointed as a judge. Then a man named Dewey Dong also came forward and said he was interested. Next, the manager in charge of this exhibition was also interested in joining in the fun. A girl named Lee Kam-hwa also came to join the fun. Lee Nok-tu came and said the last position was for you. I'm too lazy to join in the fun. Someone asked Nok-tu if she was coming too. He happily greeted and said he was coming too. This is truly a great lineup of judges. Both sides agree with this jury lineup. Witnessing this scene, Mr. On said he really knew how to play, which made Mr. On excited. He just said he only knows how to play all day and asked who he thought would win this time. Mr. On immediately chose him to win. A person who says that can start to choose the stone. Nok-tu called him and said he supported him. Tell him to try harder. Now it's Confucius' turn. He stepped forward. His eyes suddenly lit up. I choose this island. Truly has courage. You have to be careful to deal with it. Duong Min stepped forward and scooped up a stone. I chose this island. After the 2 of them finished choosing, Tan Ti Fai announced. Master Kong, young man, before cutting. It depends on how 2 people evaluate the other person's primeval stone. Duong Nin volunteered to evaluate first. I'll check it out first. Among these stone veins, there is a distinct vein. The clouds in front are bright, right, left, front and back from all sides. The head of the cloud is facing high. This is called bowing to the cloud. This line is in accordance with the geographical orbit, and is even more in harmony with the 5 elements. The statue of Phuk Lok is the stone that holds treasure. However, Master Confucius's work was not up to par. But it's true that you have courage. Kong Bon Chan was angry at that insult. This stone of yours is quite okay. Your luck is not bad. Choose a primeval stone that is competitive at a general level. However, the quality is not very good, just not as good as my stone. So he started to boast, seeing that I had won the first round. But Duong Nin still spoke confidently. I didn't dare to nod randomly. Nodding haphazardly, you deserve to say that too. When I used a knife to cut stone. Your father hasn't been born yet, so why is this old man talking about other people's families? He said grumpily, let me ask a question. What identity did Master Kong use to participate in this match? What is your identity? Anyway, it has nothing to do with this game between you and me. So that means someone already wants it. It's just a pawn to pave the way for them to run away. It's a hunting dog, you understand. Keep your mouth clean. Your master hasn't spoken yet. How dare you be rude? Kong Bon Chan is so hot-blooded. You brat, you bastard, you, who thought that he was a senior in the academic field, would understand etiquette, know how to control himself, and have many achievements, but he didn't expect it to be in front of so many people. Speaking of being insulted, in the past, Mr. Li Trong Quang invented geology. Later, Hoang Tan studied and published the theory of multi-cycle structural movement. These two are the shining stars of geography. Has Master Confucius achieved any achievements yet? I hate you, brother, Kong Bon Chan was about to say. I, for one, was forced to keep my mouth shut. Shameless old dog, he can live more than 70 years at most, and he still dares to talk about it. Dare to stand in front of me claiming to be a trained geologist. You are nothing more than a dog scratching a bone. If you dare to stand in front of me and bark loudly, I have never met you with such a shameless face like you. Master Kong was so enthralled and scolded that he became angry and choked on blood. Master Kong, Imperial Concubine Tan sneered at this strange thing. It seems to be the part where Confucius shoots Vong Lang. It's true that talent is different, you brat, don't say bad things. After all, Master Confucius, Duong Nin glared. Do you want to compete with me again? Luke Kwok Huan interjected teasingly. I know something about this kid, should I tell you? The manager of the center ran out to intervene. All right everyone, now that we're in the middle of a competition, how about everyone give a little space to each other? Can we get this over with? He turned to serve. Cut these 2 stones. A moment later, the stone was also cut. Master Confucius's stone has increased in price. It's an ice seed, brat. Seeing how our fight is going, I'll cut the next stone. Duong Nin immediately said, profit first. Luke Kwok Huan panicked. What the hell, did something happen? Tran Vin said, are you planning on admitting defeat? Let's pretend you know better. Duong Nin happily replied, almost forgetting, if it's a high bet, you should bet money, right? Seeing that, Tan Duidung said, we are just judges. What kind of bet? How much money? The 2 people negotiate. Tran Vin smiled sinisterly. He gave the first number, 2,000,000, to see what was hidden in your stone. Duong Nin was surprised, 2,000,000, but he wanted to see. He was not confident about his decision, or was it only 2,000,000? Then 3,000,000. Oh my god. Luke Kwok Huan is helpless. Duong Nin still refused to accept that number. I bet 5,000,000. If you want to follow then follow, if not then there's no need to discuss. Everyone was surprised. 5,000,000, everyone gasped. As for Kong Bon Chan, he decided to play big too. Bet on him, what the heck, it's strange to be able to cut the new army. Tran Vin Hua followed and said, 5,000,000 is 5,000,000. Cut it, and as soon as he raised the saw, Duong Nin called again. Wait, what again? What do you want? Duong Nin expressed that it was just a bet between us, not counted as the winning amount for the entire match of 3 games, winning 2. You can consider the last $5,000 as personal money. Luke Kwok Huan began to feel uneasy. Is this boy Duong Nin okay? The odds are getting bigger and bigger and I've exceeded my limit. Guessing that expression, Duong Nin turned to ask. Uncle Luke, you won't blame me for deciding on my own. Kid, I just want to ask you, how sure are you of winning? Duong Nin confidently smiled at him. Luke Kwok Huan thought. This bet, combined with both the separate bet and the main bet, is definitely over 100 million. Winning is of course good, but if you lose, even though you won't go bankrupt, you will definitely lose your vitality. I don't know why, I have a feeling. Compared to money over thousands of thousands, this boy Duong Nin is much more important. The kid can take on challenges, he's a tough guy. I risked going crazy with it once. Luke Kwok Huan immediately gave a huge number. 100 million, you guys dare to bet as much as I want. The Kong Bon Chan trio will panic. Could it be that Luke Kwok Huan is crazy? He wants to play a game of earth-shattering meditation. 100 million, this number doesn't even count the first game of 5 million. Therefore, no one knows how much private betting money there is. The bet this time was truly unprecedented. Chow Hok Ban stood outside listening and wanted to go crazy. Crazy, really crazy. With this rhythm it's probably more than 200 million. Tan Ti Fai smiled. This kid is quite interesting. Tran Vin and Ta Nam saw that things were not okay so they spoke up. Boss Luke is not an impulsive person. I suddenly looked forward to the next gamble. Master Kong, see if you believe me or not. This time I can't stand aside, so let's do it. I contributed 2 million, just looking calm. But he's scared to death. The stone we cut has ice. As for raw stones of a few hundred yuan, it is unlikely that they will be able to cut high-quality jade. Everyone didn't think that the kid who randomly picked a few rocks would have ice. After hearing that, the two men were also scared. Tran Vin and Ta Nam could only obey Kong Bon Chan's wishes. If not, the master has said so, let's give up, no problem. If so, 100 million, 100 million. Even the Chinese manager had to admire the stupidity of those three guys. Wow, city people really know how to play, it makes me excited. Everyone looked intently at the cutter. The old stone cutter was startled when he saw the quality of the stone. Heaven and earth are full of ice. Ice is also high-grade ice. Master Kong is in trouble this time. This kid is truly miraculous. Looking at its quality, it is not much worse than jade glass. On Van Hao admired Duong Nin. Look, I told you so. Uncle Duong will win. Duong Nin is not simple. Maybe in the future he will still be a big figure. Luke Kwok Huan was delighted. It's won. Ha ha, I won. Never never. Kong Bonjen was not convinced. Cut from the back. Definitely bok mean. It's definitely because the date slices are green. So keep cutting. The back is also green. This matter made Kong Bon Chan go cold. There was a young man approaching Luke Kwok Huan and Duong Nin. He wants to bid 4,000 Duong Tien Sin. General Luke, I wonder if you want to sell this Mao Lu? You have to ask him about this. This stone belongs to him. It has nothing to do with me, Duong Min said honestly. I need to use this jade, so I won't sell it for now. Sorry, you can negotiate with the other side. He turned to Tran Vin, Tran Tien Sin, and Mao Lu. I bid 2 million. Can you resell it to me? He felt as if he was appalled. The quality of these two jade stones is not the same. The one you cut out is inferior, so don't sell it. Why did Mr. Kong come out to sell 2,300,000? If you agree then take it, Master Confucius, leave it, it's not worth it. Looks like there's no need to score anymore. Boss Luke wins this game. I don't expect anyone to stir up the match later. No matter what your goal is, wait until the match is over and do it. Uncle, next time I won't dare anymore. Don't be angry, I'm going to get some fresh air. Uncle, everyone was surprised by the unusual relationship between these two people. When they heard him say that, Tran Vin and Tai Nam were shocked beyond words. At this time, do they think he has a relationship with In Charge Trung? If you know in advance, you don't need 2,000 or 1 million to sell. They both cried together and continued to think it was good now. Not only can he not make friends, he also offends people. At this time, Luke Kwok Huan raised the card and looked in their direction. Ta Nam was afraid and told Master Kong what to do next game. Tran Vin also called Master Kong and said that now they had to think of a way to take back the previous judgment. Kong Bon Chan's whole body was covered in sweat and he told them not to rush so he could think about it. At this moment, Boss Luong raised his hand and closed his eyes as if he didn't want to look at Tran Vin and Ta Nam. Boss Luong then said he wanted to talk to Luke Kwok Huan privately. Tran Vin and Ta Nam were startled by the unsightly expression on their faces and secretly said Boss Luong was a traitor. Luke Kwok Huan awkwardly looked towards him and then extended his hand towards the other side. Then tell Boss Luong, so let's go over there and talk. Seeing Boss Luong with them, Tru Vin was angry. He said these people dared to betray them before going into battle. As long as he attracts the attention of so many people, he won't be able to hold his head up in the world anymore. After Luke Kwok Huan shook hands with Boss Luong, he approached and asked Luke Kwok Huan if he could turn war into peace. Luke Kwok Huan smiled and told him it wasn't just that. It is also a mutually beneficial relationship for both sides to establish some cooperative relationships that were too lazy to think about before. Right now I'm thinking based on this change of heart. He will have a real opportunity to reach beyond Nanhu City and even step out of Jiangning City. A man approached Tran Vin and Ta Nam and asked if they were still continuing. The two of them were worried and frightened and looked at each other. At this time, Luke Kwok Huan asked the two of them if they wanted to retreat. Then he continued to say that if someone else withdrew, it would be okay for the two of them to get it alone. At this time, both of them were angry. Ta Nam told Luke Kwok Huan that the guy named Luke should not think that they were afraid of him. Then Ta Nam told him not to look down on others. Ta Nam got angry and asked him if Luke Kwok Huan had decided to chase and kill him. He told the two of them to chase and kill the star and had not yet chosen or cut it, but had already admitted defeat. Luke Kwok Huan then asked Boss Ta, when did his liver become so small? Hearing him say that, Ta Nam and Tru Vin got angry and yelled at him. Then Tru Vin was surprised and said 100 million was too much. He laughed and told the two of them that he kept saying that he just didn't have money. He alone bet 100 million with the two of them and still didn't dare to play. Each person's fortune, which is several hundred million, is probably all a fabrication. He also followed Luke Kwok Huan's words and said that a group of celebrities bragged about being billionaires. If you have 100 million combined, you wouldn't dare to play in front of so many people and you'd be so shameless about bargaining. At this time, Tru Vin was so angry that he took a risk. Tru Vin loudly said that it's a win or a win. Luke Kwok Huan put the card on the table and asked them if they really had this amount of money. This time, Luke Kwok Huan, you don't dare accept the check anymore. He looked down at the table, startled and said this stone. The rat-toothed guy saw him staring at the stone on the table and wondered what he wanted to do. Then he hesitantly said, have you looked at that stone? At this time, a hand grabbed the rock he was about to pick up and left. It turned out that it was Chow Hok Ban. He picked up the stone and happily told the owner that he bought it. He looked bewildered at him taking the stone away. The rat-toothed man smiled and silently praised him for doing a good job. He looked at him with an annoyed expression and asked him what he meant. Chow Hok Ban turned back to look at him with a provocative expression. Then he told him that if he saw this stone, of course he would buy it. He angrily told Chow Hok Ban not to be too much. Chow Hok Bin said that he just wanted to buy a stone. Is that too much? Besides, whether you buy it or not has nothing to do with me. The rat-toothed guy also continued Chow Hok Ban's words and said it was right. This stone has no buyer or setter. It was also reasonable for them to buy it. Luke Kwok Huan was angry and loudly said that the poor man was shameless. Indeed, like father, like son, the two of them are not good things. He turned back and told manager Chung that he had just said that outsiders were not allowed to influence the match. Then he asked him if it counted if they did so. Ta Nam quickly told manager Chung to wait, who told him that he was an outsider and had nothing to do with it. Ta Nam then whispered to Chow Hok Ban that the two of them also had a grudge against Luke Kwok Huan. Chow Hok Ban loudly told him that the two of them had a grudge and would not play together with him. Ta Nam smiled crookedly and asked Chow Hok Ban if he agreed to join their side and not play a match with him. Then he brought his hand closer to the stone in Chow Hok Ban's hand. Then tell him to hold this stone and fight with me. They will accept the loss. Chow Hok Ban then looked at Ta Nam and smiled and said he would participate. Ta Nam looked towards Manager Chung, pointed at Chow Hok Ban and said, Mr. Chow is no longer an outsider. Mr. Chow is no longer an outsider. It is possible to participate in the match and then ask Manager Chung if it is correct. Manager Chung nodded solemnly and said okay. The man on the left said that the rough stone had no previous buyer and belonged to that person. The man on the right said no one's name was written on that stone. Luke Kwok Huan angrily told Manager Chung that this was unfair. This shameless father and son came to visit Luke Kwok Huan without any objections, but this stone cannot be used for betting. Manager Chung's expressionless face turned to ask Luke Kwok Huan if he had any opinion on the decision of the jury. Luke Kwok Huan helplessly said that if it was the opinion of the jury, he would have no opinion at all. He watched the two of them talk and was silent for a while. Then he smiled and turned towards Chow Hok Ban and told everyone that anyone who wanted to buy stones should hurry up. He walked up to the rocks and said if no one wanted to buy them then he would start choosing. Then he asked everyone if they didn't have any more opinions, right? He glanced in the direction of Ta Nam and Chow Hok Ban and then silently watched them talk. The two of them also looked at him and smiled provocatively at him. Then Chow Hok Ban said it was useless for him to look at them and said the stone belonged to them. He looked at the pile of rocks on the table, raised his hand and thought, then said this. Looks like you dipped into that dark purple stone. Kong Bon Chow saw him aiming at that stone and immediately thought worriedly. Unfortunately, that stone has a high chance of producing green, and the quality is also very good. If it weren't for the Chow Luke father and son suddenly getting their hands on him, he would definitely have carried that stone. Kong Bon Chow asked himself how he would definitely choose that stone now. When Kong Bon Chow saw that he was about to take that stone, he couldn't think. At that time, he grabbed that stone and happily said he would buy it for 700,000. At this time, Luke Kwok Huan became even angrier and loudly asked them what they meant by doing that. If you've already gotten addicted to it, do you dare to do it again? He turned around and told Kong Bon Chow that he really thought he was an old dog like him. Actually being a geologist or famous is just a life of deceiving people to gain fame. Kong Bon Chow angrily turned around and shouted at him. The two people in the audience said that he was truly shameless. This time it was clearly a robbery. Tran Vin and Ta Nam looked at Master Kong in surprise. Then Ta Nam immediately called Master Kong. Luke Kwok Huan angrily told Manager Trung that this was no longer a fair contest. This is no longer a competition, no more playing the monkey. He said they saw what stone he chose and jumped out to steal it, so what else could they do? In charge of the middle, the son turned to the master's side and called out to him. Master Kong raised his hand and pretended to cough, then said that he was apologizing to him. Look at the stone in Master Confucius's hand. Manager Trung said if he had already chosen. Then Duong Tianxin just asked if anyone else wanted to choose the stone. Why didn't he speak up? He turned away and said at that time he didn't think he would look at them. Don't leave it until after the match ends. The dead people who resisted looked at him with contemptuous eyes and spoke. They said he was shameless, just hearing that made them want to vomit. They said he was truly a disgrace to the geology community and even dared to put gold on his face, which was ridiculous. Then Ta Nam and Tran Vin looked at him with worried expressions. Then Ta Nam told him that this was Master Confucius and he got angry and told Ta Nam to shut up. He turned back and asked the two of them whether they wanted to win or not, talk less and do more. The two of them heard him say that and looked at each other silently. Luke Kwok Huan told Manager Trung that there was no way he could play this match anymore. Tran Vin asked him and Luke Kwok Huan if they were scared and could not play. It seems like your side proactively gave up the 200 million payment. Manager Trung turned to look at him and asked him what his side was up to. Master Confucius said that this was the second game and he hoped that both sides would choose 3 rough stones. Regardless of the outcome, this one game will decide victory or defeat. Luke Kwok Huan loudly told Kong Bon Chao that he would change the rules based on whatever he wanted. Then he told him that the two of them could go, they couldn't do it anymore. Looking at Luke Kwok Huan and him leaving, it's not okay for the two of them to wait. Doesn't Luke Kwok Huan want to listen more carefully? He looked at the two of them and raised 2 fingers and said that if their side lost, it would be a double loss. Everyone in the audience said in unison, isn't that 400 million? The rat-toothed guy turned to look at Chow Hok Ban and said this amount of money was too big. Then Kong Bon Chao turned around and told the 2 people that if they won, he would give them 3,000. Hearing them say that, Manager Trung turned to ask what Luke Kwok Huan's decision was. Luke Kwok Han was about to say something before he could speak but he stopped him. He then told Manager Trung that these people disrupted the order of the match 5 times 7 times. More importantly, if you want to change the betting rule, you think you need to add a few more sets. The 2 sides seek an agreement, whichever side violates is considered a loss. At the same time, you have to pay a large fine, not much more than 1 billion. Tran Vin got angry and loudly told him what he meant, brat. He laughed and told Tran Vin that if he had no intention of disrupting order, that 1 billion fine was just for fun. Then he asked Tran Vin if he still wanted to disrupt. Tran Vin angrily said that if he signed, he had no opinion. Luke Kwok Huan told Manager Trung that he did not think they could collect the full 400 million bet. Tran Vin stammered and said they still had mortgaged assets. Manager Trung turned around and told Luke Kwok Huan if they lost without paying. In charge Trung made sure they couldn't get through this door. After I finished signing, I told them that they should start choosing the 3rd stone. He also agreed to watch Kong Bon Chao turn away and wash away. He went to the stone table and picked up a stone. Then he said he chose this stone and it was chosen by me. He smiled and went to the table to pick 3 stones and then he said he would choose these 3 stones. Chow Hok Bin proudly told him that he would definitely lose this time. Chow Hok Ban smiled and continued to say that he would reclaim all the things that belonged to him, both principal and interest. The rat-toothed guy laughed and said that if they had 3,000 in their hands, they would have a brighter future. He looked at them and smiled and asked them on what basis they said he would lose. The 2 of them were startled when he asked that. He picked up a stone and asked the 2 of them why it was only because of this stone. If you say that, I have to congratulate you first. I'm sure after this bet you will get rich. He smiled and told him of course that if they beat the 2 of them, they would have 3,000 plus this rough stone. Suddenly, the rat was startled and worried, telling Chow Hok Ban to quickly shut up. The rat-toothed guy looked at the rock and said damn this rock. He smiled and told them that the price of this stone was 480,000, they really had a lot of money. Duong Nin provoked old Master Confucius into giving this stone with a sunken appearance that he could afford to spend 700,000 to buy. It's so admiring. He was so embarrassed that he became angry and yelled at him to stop talking nonsense. The 2 people behind them looked at each other and thought the same thing, maybe he was acting just now. He touched the stone and explained that the 2 words, you, meant that this stone grave would probably cut out the bones of animals. Over a long period of time, agglomeration eventually turns into fossils. They heard about fossils and still had 700,000 to buy a fossil, which was too much of a loss. Chow Bak Kang was angry and thought that his brat was trying to trick him, right? Chow Hok Ban was also sweating in panic, so he had just planned to harm his child. Tran Vin and Ta Nam also angrily gritted their teeth and pointed. It turns out you already dug a hole and I have to settle the bill with you. Manager Trung saw that things were becoming increasingly difficult to control and stretched out his hand to block them from asking. What are you guys planning to do? Tran Vin spoke to Manager Trung, he was not satisfied. Because he's bad at bluffing, this game doesn't count. But Manager Trung replied that they knew how they got this stone. Moreover, the paper is black and white, so does he want to destroy order again? Okay then, this game is over. Before finishing his sentence, Ta Nam pulled Tran Vin's hand and said. Wait, in charge Trung apologizes and continues, Let's continue the exam. Then he whispered to Tran Vin that he was crazy. If they mess up again, they will lose, and not only will they lose 400 million, but they will also have to pay a fine of 1 billion. Tran Vin heard what Ta Nam said and thought it made sense. In fact, they haven't lost yet. That brat is definitely deceiving them, so they should absolutely not be trusted. Lee Kam Hwa and Thien Ton Dui Hung both think the stone hasn't been cut yet, but because of some people's words, the whole side is pessimistic. This psychological quality also has the face to pour jelly. After there were no further objections, Manager Trung ordered it to be cut off. Kong Bon Chan, after giving the order, told the green patty to put the stone in his hand and the old man to put this stone himself. He thought that up until now, he had never had to doubt his vision. What kind of jellyworm is nonsense? Looking at the stone, he knew that this was the stone that would decide whether the bet would continue or stop. But if you look closely, this stone seems to be weathered twice. It is impossible to predict whether it will be possible to come out again. The secretary slowly wiped away his sweat and worried that this time they were really caught in the crosshairs. Chow Hok Ban angrily cursed motherfucker, then approached to hit him, but he easily avoided it. He also hit him hard on the shoulder and neck, causing him to faint on the spot. Everyone around him whispered that his skills were so good, they didn't expect that he had martial arts. Bong's handsome voice made him turn around. It turns out I had a chance to eat with those two before. Those two beauties are Amaya and Ayla. Walking next to them are two men over 40 years old. The fathers of these two girls are smiling friendly. Duong Nin also smiled and looked back. Ayla excitedly told her father that he was the person she mentioned last time. If it wasn't for that bastard Dang Nok Kang that day, it would have been the two of you. Her father made a suggestion, considering that he did not fight if he did not know her. But the smile on his face showed that there was no way to reconcile. If there is a chance, invite him to dinner as an apology. Tran Hwa Thien also told his daughter to interact a lot with talented young men like him. She and he will save a lot of trouble. He went to tell Manager Trung that this matter must be handled seriously. Then he went to greet and shake hands with Hong Tong, Tan Tong and Li Tong because of their appearance here. He also politely greeted Tran Tong and Sao Tong. Everyone recognized Tran Hwa Thien and Sao Tong Ban, and those two beautiful girls as their daughters. They whispered that if they could become the son-in-law of one of the two families, they would definitely be able to reduce their struggle by 20 years. Manager Trung seriously said it was disrupting the order of the competition. What else do you want to say? Tran Vin explained that this was a misunderstanding. The reason is entirely that Chow Bak Kang's son went crazy and has nothing to do with them. He sweated and apologized that he didn't take good care of the child. Please take responsibility for his rude actions in advance. He agreed to any compensation request. The manager of the Chinese capital usually gives these 2 words of compensation. In fact, those who break the betting rules will be considered losers. At the same time, they must pay a fine of 1 billion for violating the agreement. Chow Bak Kang hopes to have another chance and asks to wait. But some people laughed loudly and then they laughed loudly. Looking back was the frightened face of the giant with the cut stone. Looking out, the stone that was cut off from Bak Kang's head was his stone. Old Confucius sweated and said, "Try again." This time, the primeval stone was cut in half, and the 2 pieces of stone fell on the floor one after another. In the dirty black stone, there are a few pale dark gray traces like the bones of some animal. Everyone was surprised. Oh my god, what a fossil. Unable to believe that he guessed like a god, Kong Bon Chan was filled with defeat. The old man knelt down and asked if he knew from the beginning. Duong Nin answered yes. He guessed maybe he was staring at it because he wanted to lure him into it. He didn't answer that question because now saying these words no longer makes sense, he has lost. In his mind, luring Uncle Kang into the trap was as real as this stone's system value was 4,600,000. At first he wanted to take it for real. Luke Kwok Huan asked if he now needed to cut his stone so that they could lose their heart and mind. But Kong Bon Chan refused. He decided to transfer part of the assets into his name. Liquidating a part of porcelain. I hope you give him some time. At this time, Tran Vin also collapsed and cried. Winning was the king. Losing was the enemy. Luke Kwok Huan, he won. Luke Kwok Huan disdainfully said that looking at their appearance was just a bet. Do you really think he will ask for 400 million from them? They were all surprised and couldn't believe it. He added that at first he also hoped that they would get 400 million and this matter would be forgotten. Ta Nam unexpectedly wanted to ask him why he did that. He went to help Tran Vin and recounted that he also did many wrong things that year. In the end, it's all about proving oneself. There's no hatred that can't be resolved. Besides, he's tired of fighting for so many years, so he should stop. Tran Vin thought about it and thought it was all trivial things. Just because of my pride, I've been entangled for so many years. Considering that they had cleared up their resentment, he asked Boss Luke to choose a place for the evening. They were not drunk and did not leave, the two shook hands to make peace. Everyone who witnessed it praised Luke Kwok Huan. He is both a great character and tolerant. From there, you should learn from experience, don't listen to random rumors, and associate with tolerant people. Duong Nin went to propose to Kong Bon Chan, who was hugging a rock and crying. Master Confucius, please sell this stone to me. He replied that if he needed it, he would just take it and give it to him. But the price he offered was 2,600,000, which startled him, and he held out the check and asked him to take it. Holding the cost in his hand, he saw that this stone was really valuable. At least it's not a waste of money to spend 700,000 to buy it. Then he told Luke Kwok Huan that he remembered he had something to do, so he asked permission to go home first, surprising him. Go outside to see the new time, just over 4 o'clock. The system reload time is 5.5 hours. Currently on the Fame mission system, he is a traitor friend. A detailed description is the best way to use a special personality appeal to win the sympathy of 100 people. The progress has been completed, so the reward received is a 500-point increase in social reputation plus an additional 5 reputation cards. This is your reward. I'm happy to have 14 and only need 5 more. At this time, Duong Nin is rehearsing the script in Han Ancient Town. The following are engraving supplies and engraving supplies too. An item of normal quality jewelry and art is required. Then I looked at the system and realized that I only needed Mr. Luke's gentleman to find it. Then he entered the gentlemanly room, and when he entered, someone greeted him. It was young Master Duong, right? Mr. Luke just called. He said you just say whatever you like. He politely replied that he was bothering Mr. Lee. Duong Nin stood thinking and then pointed to a picture of a flower branch with 2 birds perched on it. Currently, the 2 items that have just been taken have been stored in the system as archives. The daily fame quest that pops up is storage supplies. More detailed is the tribute of an item that is a normal quality work of art. After the tribute, the item will disappear. The progress has been completed. Duong Nin received the Small House Dream Fame Award increased by 300 points and 2 fame cards. I'm happy because I have collected 18, only the last one left. The final task is to do something that represents positive energy. This is too easy for me. See an old man sitting over there begging. It was the person he needed. But when he looked at the system, he didn't understand what was happening. The task had not been completed, and the old man was also confused. He doesn't understand where the problem lies. But suddenly the system appeared. Each day a good deed was completed. Your race's reputation is increasing by 50 points. And he got a fame card. He had a hard time understanding what he did. Suddenly the phone rang, and when I picked it up, there was a voice on the other end of the line. Hello, Principal Misla has finally agreed to donate. Just like with you, this time the fundraising activities of Tam Trung's head teachers were all very good. The other end of the line said thank you very much. He asked if Misla was much better. The other person said the situation was much better. Having just fallen asleep, her family didn't know how else to thank him. He is her family's benefactor. I'm humble, don't say that. When I'm not busy, I'll come visit her and turn off the phone. He sighed, not thinking about a woman under 30 years old being pressured to the point of fainting because of money matters. In this world, many people fall into such situations. I'm glad it's all over. Next is to handle your own business. In the system, you have now saved the egg, and he decided to exchange it. It's certainly a good thing, but he told me to stay calm. But this requires 10,000 accumulated points. This really scares me. Thinking that if I want to have this score, I need to transact with the system with a total amount of 1,000,000. Duong Nin rubbed his chin and wondered if he had ever earned that much money before. The system reports that money earned by gambling or without commercial transactions is not accepted. Duong Nin understood and said he finally understood why earning 2 million not only had no attribute points, but the progress of the main mission also had no movement at all. At Duong Nin's house right now, he was sitting in front of the system saying that he had to sell the jelly stone, but the system only bought it for 4,600,000, so cooking it cost about 3 million. However, if you can buy things with money, you can still buy accumulated points. Money can't buy accumulated points. If so, the status of money is really very different. The system notifies you that you have sold fingerprint fish with accumulated points of 4,640. The main mission notification system becomes a millionaire. Hundreds of thousands of details are the beginning of the teenager's efforts to become a millionaire that everyone admires. Progress 10 million 10 million completed. The Penetrating Eye Award will show that the host has an eye test. An upgrade in progress within 24 hours after the upgrade will often become see-through. The main task of becoming a billionaire is that 100 million is no longer a huge amount of money. 1 million is no longer the same, but the value of a billionaire has not changed. Let's sing loudly our slogan. Money is just paper. Progress 05 10 million. Prize unknown. Duong Nin was surprised, but I don't know why. The system always brings me unprecedented experiences and never disappoints me. If the prize is unclear, then it is definitely not simple. We're about to sell 5,000 points now, or should we just sell them all? At that moment, his phone rang. Who are you picking up? Suddenly there was a loud singing sound. You made a promise and then brushed your butt off. Duong Nin heard his voice and said there was only one person calling him like this. On the other end of the line was Dong Dong, and she told me that he agreed with me whenever he wanted to do it. Duong Nin's face suddenly said something. The copper on the other end of the line shouted loudly. The scabies toad wanted to eat the swan's meat and even dared to think about eating his younger brother's flesh and let Dai Bok bite him. Duong Nin asked again what the matter was. Dong Dong replied, of course it's the medicine to become beautiful, didn't I promise to give you some? Duong Nin replied that next time I'll see you again. Dong Dong chuffed and said he wanted to drink a little more. Duong Nin gently replied that if you don't drink too much of this, you won't be afraid of becoming deformed and having to go to the hospital for an amputation. Dong Dong's eyes widened in bewilderment and he asked if amputation was surgery to not have a baby. Hearing Dong Duong Nin's answer, he fell back and said it was tubal ligation. At this time, Lam Manhuyan suddenly came closer and told Dong Dong to give her the phone. Then she told Duong Nin that she heard that today he won big and cut a lot of jade stones to congratulate him. Duong Nin heard her voice and thought to himself that Lam Manhuyan asked you to call because you wanted to buy stones from me. Lam Manhuyan then replied, what do you think? Duong Nin said he couldn't sell it. Lam Manhuyan frowned and couldn't rest assured that you won't lose, I'll buy it at the market price. Recently the company urgently needed some jadeite, can you help me? Listening to Lam Manhuyan Duong Nin's answer, he thought to himself, but I still care more about points. Duong Nin continued, I only have 2 jade stones in my hand. This is called a ghost entering the village and sweeping away all wealth. Lam Manhuyan on the other side replied nonsense. Then it was clear that he had taken a lot of stones away. But Tu Tin said that the company could not buy them all right now. So take 2 red hazelnuts and Manluk and do it. Manhuyan continued to say a total of 5 million. If there were no problems, the money would immediately be poured into his account. Duong Nin said you trust me so much, aren't you afraid that I will accept money and not deliver the goods? Dong Dong like that means that if you can escape the monk, you cannot escape the staff. Hearing that, Duong Nin countered that he could escape the monk but he couldn't escape the temple. Your head teacher in literature was the physical education teacher. Lam Manhuyan pushed Dong Dong away and continued to say that you helped Uncle Luke win thousands of thousands but you didn't get much money. It seems like you're not someone who cares too much about money, and I trust you. When Duong Nin heard that, he said it to the point that it made me emotional. If that's the case, Then let's decide how to give you the stone. Before he could continue speaking, Lam Manhuyan hung up the phone. Duong Nin angrily slammed the phone down on the bed. Nowadays, you shouldn't believe in friendship. Looking so decisively, crossing the bridge won't be that quick. Then he opened the system and said those 2 items were considered to be ignored for sale of the remaining goods. 7,900,000. Oh my god. A few days ago I couldn't even find the yellow color, but now it's worth 8 million. 5 million can be exchanged for dozens of attribute points. It's really a headache to know which one to get. Then he looked at attribute point system too. What are you shouting so loudly? Why doesn't it increase even though he is so beautiful that it has at least 40 points? It's a fault in the SA. Then he remembered what the system said earlier, that money earned by betting on thieves or not through commercial transactions would not be accepted. He thought to himself that yes, these 2 stones were bought with Uncle Luke's money and now they are his, so they can only be considered gifts. This is a bloody lesson that you will definitely use your money to buy in the future. He cried and went away to break the egg, hoping it wouldn't last forever. Then he clicked on the system screen notifying you that you have received an appraisal letter. Duong Nin held the egg in his hand and said that he had completely spent the 10,000 accumulated points, only to be able to exchange for the remaining one-time consumable goods. Luck must come up with something really good. The system notifies you because you used the inspection certificate for the eggs in the warehouse. The seal was broken. The silver certificate changed to a golden egg. The silver egg now turns into a golden egg. This is a treasure that can produce all sorts of things. It looks like an egg, but it's not for incubation, it's not for eating, it's not for playing. It has a unique value for dam survival. Then he clicked on the screen and hit the fruit with a hammer. The fruit cracked and around it was part of the rainbow aura. But saying if it's green means it's especially good. If it's blue, pink, purple, yellow, orange, what does it mean? He thought to himself, so on top of the exceptionally good level, there are at least 5 other levels. The egg cracked and inside was a blue sphere. Duong Nin said it's okay to look up, but it's better to look down. Notification system detects fine-quality illusory art items and evaluates the art's ability to create illusions through the computer's magnetic field. Anyone who looks into the eyes of a magic user is likely to fall into an illusion of the magic user's attribute. The higher the success rate, the longer the illusion lasts. Chao Tiu Fai on the other side sneezed. The system informed you that you had used the magic trick. Duong Nin covered his face and said his eyes are too tight. It seems like his ability has been activated but he still doesn't feel anything. I have to slowly learn how to use this illusion technique. Unfortunately I still don't have a test subject. Then he stood up, stretched, said never mind, used the remaining 2 magic points on his energy, then went to read a book and will continue with other things tomorrow. At night, Vong Kai Choyan was playing games when his father came and asked Kai Choyan to take the test again tomorrow, right? Vong Kai Choyan replied that he didn't know what the school wanted to do. Last time, he said it was the last time, but now he's taking the exam again. His father then continued, I heard that the family of a teacher at your school had a problem and all of you donated money, right? Vong Kai Choyan, still looking at the game screen, replied that he even donated 20 yuan. His father asked Chao Tiu Fai how much he contributed. Vong Kai Choyan took an apple and bit into it and replied 10 yuan. In his mind, he thought that the brat Duong Nin contributed 100,000 to make all the pretty girls at school pay attention to him. Based on what? On what basis does that bastard have so much money? On what basis does he have such a good figure? On what basis does Tu Noan and Chao Tay cling to him? Based on what it broke the world record, shouldn't these things belong to me? Dad continued to say yes. Later I'll give you 500 yuan to donate to the teacher. Vong Chi Chuan asked again to donate 500 yuan. His father replied that he should just take it until then and see how much Chao Tiu Fai contributes, then he will contribute that amount. If it's not enough, then call his father. He was serious about Kai Choyan. This matter had to be calculated a bit. On Friday afternoon, Chao Tiu Fai's father promoted the donation at the unit. Many people who had good relationships with him gave money. Even my Uncle Chu didn't know what to think but contributed 1,000 yuan. Vong Kai Choyan asked in surprise. Uncle Chu? Uncle Chu is not from the land department of Nam Chao City, so how could he know Ms. La? His father replied to be more precise. Ms. La and the other acquaintances did not know each other, but the person who did this was Chow Haidao. His son was stupid. He was not stupid. He must have hidden feelings. Vong Kai Choyan rubbed his chin and wondered why. The next day at school, the students greeted each other. At this time there was a voice calling Duong Nin. It turned out to be Tu Noan Noan. She approached Duong Nin and said he came so early. Duong Nin replied that he did too. When Vong Kai Choyan saw it from afar, he gritted his teeth and said it was Tu Noan Noan. Mr. Man, standing next to him, said Tu Noan Noan, but he took the initiative to talk to Duong Nin. Vong Kai Choyan looked at this scene from afar. Duong Nin thought you guys were free to be jealous. Suddenly, a hand touched Tu Noan Noan's shoulder in surprise. Two boys came up to say hello to their uncle, Ta Ton Dong, a second grader. The person standing next to him, Hua Ba, asked Duong Nin, "Are you from this class?" Duong Nin answered correctly. Hua Ba said that if he knew who I was, he wouldn't be able to stand up straight and show us some tricks. Tu Noan Noan grimaced and told those two people, "I have no interest in getting to know you." The tall, muscular blonde man spoke again. "I just want to get to know you. We're both from the same school." The girl replied calmly, without interest. That answer made the boy extremely angry. "I've met a lot of people like you. If I give you a little money, I'll take off my clothes." In front of him, he still pretended to be pure. After that, the two of them left angrily. This entire scene captured the male lead's eyes. Chow Tae leaned close to the male lead and hesitantly spoke. "They don't look like good people. Maybe when I get home I can tell my dad about this." The male lead seemed to agree and said that this small matter does not need to bother Secretary Tu. "Rest assured, if they dare to make a mess, we will find a way." Hearing the male lead say that made her feel okay again, she happily agreed. Okay. Then the two of them happily chatted and went to class. Two classmates just saw this scene and were extremely angry. One guy spoke up and said, "Ton Dong, I didn't expect this girl to be the boss of hot peppers." This guy Ta Ton Dong was angry. He gritted his teeth and said, "No matter how spicy it is, it's just a vegetable, not a savory dish. Even if you don't turn into a monkey, you can't escape the 5 Elements mountain." He looked towards the male lead who was happily chatting. "Let's deal with that bastard tonight, the one who isn't afraid of death." At that point, I went to block his path, and one of them pulled his pants down. Taking a video and posting it online, the school's opening ceremony took place. The male lead stood in line, glanced at his chubby friend who was yawning, then turned to ask in question. "Didn't you sleep last night?" He replied, "I don't know, who missed me last night, making me sing a few times." A clogged nose is very uncomfortable, like it's lacking oxygen. Basically unable to sleep, the male lead seemed to be caught sweating, smiling and thinking to himself. "Last night it seemed like I had always intended to use him as an illusory medium experiment." Chow Tiu Fai, on the other hand, made an angry face and silently said, "It must be Vong Tri Choyan." The male lead on the side heard this and laughed and echoed along. "Yes, it's him. Somewhere there's someone singing farts." In a certain class, the teacher spoke up to remind the students. Students collect the things on the table and move them to 2 rows of tables and chairs at least half a meter apart. They will take the practice test in a moment. On one side, there was a boy who immediately thought when he heard the teacher's words. "This morning there will be exams in literature and foreign languages. Literature is not my forte. Foreign languages are sometimes not as good as it. In the afternoon, I tried my best at the math test and only got the same score." A classmate approached the male lead and said, "Hey, Duong Nin, don't forget the climax of the competition with Tri Choyan." Before he could finish his sentence, Chow Tiu Fai from behind gave him a strong push on his back, making him feel pain all over, then said, "So talkative, what is your age?" Then turned back and said, "That's surnamed Vong. Chain the crazy dog at home. Please, don't let it bite you." Hearing these things, the classmate surnamed Vong spoke up. This guy, Mac Vu, was full of fat and came to cause trouble. He was scared so he blamed it on us. It was truly shameless. He also lost without running around the school naked. The one who challenges is you, the one who betrays you is also you. If I say a few words I will hurt others. Hearing that, he could only grit his teeth and think in anger, so was Makvu. I don't know why I caused trouble with Duong Nin, but I thought the situation was still the same as before without respecting anyone. Then he calmly said, Makvu, let's go. Go to the bathroom, don't pay attention to them. I thought, a Kwong sees something unusual about us. A bunch of moths clinging to the wall. Suddenly inside the room there was laughter. Ha ha ha. It was Hua Ba's voice. After Vong Kai Choyan passed a room, he heard a familiar loud laugh and thought to himself. After all, Hua Ba is one of the 3 gangsters of Nam Ho. Besides Ta Ton Dong, there is no one else you can take advantage of. Then he walked to the room that had just emitted laughter. In front of the door were 2 guys standing on both sides to guard. Seeing someone coming, a guard waved his hand and said, this place is already in use, find another bathroom. Vong Kai Choyan slowly walked over and said, I want to talk to Hua Ba. Related to our class Duong Nin, the 2 door guards spoke up. Who is Duong Nin? Never heard of it. Vong Kai Choyan replied. It was the person who raised the flag this morning. Ah, that's the name. Okay, you go in. Once inside, he broke out in sweat when he saw the scene inside. 2 people are trying to use their feet to kick a person lying on the ground. The person being beaten kept screaming loudly. Stop fighting, you'll kill someone. Then a person wearing a thin coat waved his hand and held a baseball bat on his shoulder, turned to look at the person and said, why is someone in here? Didn't I tell you to block the back door? A guard just said, their boss said there was something he wanted to find you related to the guy in grade 3 this morning. Knowing that, after saying that, he threw down the baseball bat. The stick rolled towards Vong Kai Choyan, then he said, it looks very exciting, right? You should try it too. Vong Kai Choyan was covered in sweat and stammered, I don't know this, Seeing the guy in the yellow jacket's indifferent attitude, he stuttered and said, I'll try. Then he bent down and picked up the stick. Walked up to the person who had just been beaten, held the stick tightly with both hands, then bent down and said, dude, you're going to die. I can't die. Then he waved his stick and shouted loudly, sincerely apologizing. He hit the man on the ground so hard that he could only cry out in pain. Swinging the arrow stick again, he thought, if this is Duong Nin then good, if this is Duong Nin then good. Then he imagined that the person lying flat on the ground in his imagination was Duong Nin. He swung his stick and roared loudly, he beat you to death. Seeing that Vong Kai Choyan was fighting more and more aggressively, the yellow-shirted man ran to stop him and said, okay.